Hey, it's Diana from Diana Marie Home, and I am back for part 2 about my 2022 seed video. I just finished recording all the herb and vegetable seeds that I am planning on growing in my garden this year, and I'm making part 2 of the flowers because that video got really long. So if you haven't seen that, you can check that out. If you are new here, my name's Diana. I share all about life in a fixer-upper. We live in upstate New York and bought a farmhouse a couple years ago that we've been working on fixing up. So I share a lot about restoring our old home, DIYs, home decor, and gardening, because gardening is a huge passion of mine, and that's what I spend the majority of my free time in the summer doing. You can also follow me on Instagram. I share more day-to-day behind the scenes there, like of this little one that you see, Lily, our bottle baby goat. I shared about her. I'll link the video here. And my blog, dianamariehome.com, is like my home base where I keep everything there that you can go back and search and stuff like that. So I'm glad you're here. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to follow along here as well. Let's talk about seeds. I've always loved growing flowers, but probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I found out that like people grow flowers just to cut them, and that was like, I don't know, like a whole new thing to me, because I was always kind of like raised like, don't cut too many flowers, like leave them in the garden and enjoy them, which, you know, that's awesome. But then like you can plant flowers to enjoy in your gardens, but then you can also plant gardens just for the purpose of cutting the flowers. And that was like aha moment for me, I guess, like, oh, I can grow these flowers specifically to be able to cut them and not feel bad about it. So the first book that I bought was this Cut Flower Garden book by Floret. Definitely recommend this. I'll link this in the description. But it's just like a really great book that talks about the basics of what you need to know to get started. I have another one of her books too, what's A Year in Flowers it's called, and that was the second book that I got because it was like, okay, now I know how to grow these flowers, but how do I like put them together? So I'll link that one too. I really like that one. I actually have all of her books, the Dahlia one, but I'm not going to talk about Dahlias today because that would be a whole nother video. Be sure to check those out. They're a great place to start, and they're like really pretty books, so you can just like leave them on your coffee table. The book that's new to me, this is the concept that's totally new to me this year, is Cool Flowers, and this one is by Lisa Mason Ziegler. I've been watching her YouTube videos and wanted to get her book so I could like have all the information in one spot. But there are flowers that you can grow like in the fall to come up the following spring, and if they can't make it through the winter, you can grow them like before your last frost date to come up in the spring, and they're called hardy annuals, and they're things like, they're different depending on your zone. So in my zone, I'm 5B. I'll be able to do things like Feverview, Snapdragons. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are flowers that I'll be able to grow in the fall, which is really cool. So I'm too late now to plant them in the fall for this year, but I'll be able to plant them before the last frost to get earlier flowers. So I'll also link this book. I'm really enjoying it so far, and it's just like really good information in there. So I am going to go through the flowers that I am excited about growing this year. Last year I expanded, but it was more of like experimenting with different varieties to see what I liked. And this year, now that I know what I like, I'm kind of able to hone in more. And of course I have other varieties that I haven't tried that I'm going to be experimenting. Like every year I just add more and hone in on what works best for me and what I like the most. Last year was the first year that I tried growing pro-cut sunflowers. So I never understood, I love sunflowers, but when I grew them and brought them in, they would just shed pollen everywhere, and like it would just be a mess. So I never understood, like, how do the sunflowers you get from the grocery store not have any pollen? Like, how is that possible? They're pro-cut sunflowers. They are hybrid sunflowers that are designed to not have pollen. So I last year did Pro-Cut Gold and Pro-Cut White Light. Absolutely loved them. This year I bought a ton more seeds. I actually got them from Sunflower Selection this year because I was able to buy like more like bulk seeds. Love these for cutting flowers to bring in, but I'll also grow, I just save seeds from the sunflowers that pop up every year. I'll also grow those. I'll continue to grow those for the pollen, for the pollinators. I just spread them through my garden to bring in all the pollinators and help my garden. So I I grow those regular sunflowers with the pollen in my garden just to leave there and enjoy in the garden, but then I grow the pro cut specifically for cutting and bringing in. I love basil. I've always grown basil, but I think it was last year, maybe the year before, I learned you can actually grow basil as a filler for bouquets, which is awesome. So I talked about in my vegetable video the basils that I plan to grow, and one of those was the Amaretto basil. I grew that last year as a cut flower and ended up using it for eating and cut flowers. Absolutely love that variety of basil. It's so pretty and has really pretty purple spike flowers. But I also got this basil cardinal this year to try, and it's supposed to have really pretty like instead of the spike flowers, they're more bushier. And like this kind of reminds me of a hydrangea. So haven't tried these before, but I'm excited for them. Zinnias. Zinnias are, I think, one of the easiest flowers to grow, and they're beautiful. They look a lot like dahlias, but are way less work, way less goes into them. I plan on doing more content about like how, like where to start, like if you just want to start with a cut flower garden, like because I think it can get really overwhelming and not everyone has a ton, like a whole ton of space to devote to just flowers. So I want to talk more about this, but long story short, like zinnias is one of the flowers that if you're new to flowers or don't have a lot of space, grow some zinnias because they're super easy and so pretty. And this year I'm really excited to try this Queen Lime Red. So Queen Lime is kind of like a series and they have like blush and orange, all different colors, but the red I've seen from other people who grow them have like these really pretty like rusty vintage looking colors in them, and so I'm really excited for these. I've also grown these Isabellina zinnias, and these are so pretty. They're a really pretty creamy color and they get really big. I didn't have them last year and I missed them. So this year I'm going to be growing more of these, and I think they're going to pair so well with the Queen Lime Red. I also got Bennery's Giant Salmon Rose zinnias. Really excited for these too. They're supposed to be really big flowers and I think they're going to have that muted color that I like. Last year I grew a ton of these little flower girl zinnias from Floret, and they were really cute, but I was looking for more of like the double varieties, and a lot of them weren't doubled and they were just tiny. They were cute, but they weren't what I was looking for, but I saved seeds from the ones that did double, and so I'm gonna grow those and see. I don't know if it's a climate thing because I was reading a lot of like reviews and other people who grew them. It might be a climate thing, I don't know, but I saved seeds from the doubles and I'm gonna grow those, see what happens this year. Cosmos are another really easy cut flower to grow, and they get really big. Sometimes they need staking. They actually probably always need staking. I didn't stake mine last year and they all flopped over, but they still kept growing. Last year I grew a ton of different varieties of cosmos, but I was growing them mostly for the purpose of cut flowers, and I found the single varieties just aren't as like hardy, not in terms of growing, but like they're more delicate when you're working with them. So I actually found myself using the cosmos that I grew last year more for filler because their greenery is actually amazing filler for bouquets, and they just grow so prolifically. So this year I plan on growing more of the double click or double cosmos. Like this one is Double Dutch Rose from Baker Creek, because then I'll be able to get flowers that are more hardy, like durable to work with, but also the greenery to use as filler. And then here's Double Click Bicolor Rose from Floret. Last year, for the first time, I grew aster, and I don't know, I didn't have high expectations for it, but it ended up being one of my favorite flowers. It was so pretty. It almost looks like a fancy mum, and they're easy for me to grow. So I have a coral and apricot variety from Floret. I'll definitely be growing these again. Okay, another variety that I discovered last year, I grew it for the first time, fell in love with it, almost didn't have it because of my dang chickens. They kept getting in the garden, and for some reason, like, they were digging everything up and eating everything, but like a lot of my flowers were surviving except for my Celosia. They kept eating the tops off of them, and so I almost gave up, but I kept planting more, and I did get some to grow. It's this vintage rose mix, Texas Plume Vintage Rose Mix Celosia from Floret. This was beautiful. Absolutely loved these. I saved so many seeds from them, which I'm so excited about to grow. These were amazing in my bouquets as like kind of like spikes and filler. They lasted forever in the vase. I love these flowers, so I can't wait to grow more of this. And then I also bought some Selway White Celosia from Johnny's and Flamingo Pink from Baker Creek. Gomphrena I have never grown before, but this is one that I'll be able to plant out early, and it's supposed to be a really good dried flower. That's something else that I'm kind of like looking more at this year, is what flowers I can dry. Like that Celosia was really good dried. And this year, I'm already thinking about Christmas 2022. I want to do a dried flower Christmas tree. So I have this white vintage Christmas tree that I absolutely love, but it's kind of like bare. And this year I struggled to decorate it because I needed to fill it with something, and I bought garlands and it just didn't look right. So I was watching YouTube, and You Can't Eat Grass, they shared how they did a dried flower Christmas tree, and I was like, that is what I need to do with this white vintage Christmas tree that I have. It will be perfect. So something that I'm doing when I'm picking my seeds is thinking about which flowers will dry well so I can put them on that Christmas tree. Hydrangeas aren't in this video because I already have them established. I don't grow them from seed, but those I'll be drying a lot of. Gomphrena, Celosia, and some other ones in here too. Snapdragons, I grew snapdragons last year. Snaps can be a little hard to germinate and get going, but I feel like once they get going, they're pretty hardy. I got some going last year, and they did well for me throughout the summer, and they actually looked like they were thriving by the end of fall. I didn't rip them out. They're still in my garden, so I'm not sure. I don't know if they reseeded themselves or if they're the original plant, but I'm going to leave them to see if they bloom again in the spring. I don't know. It's just kind of an experiment, but I do have some other. I bought these Potomac Ivory and Costa Silver hybrid. These are hybrids from Johnny's, and then I have some of the other varieties that I grew last year, like Madame Butterfly Bronze, I think, and then I have like a lavender and I think a pink. I don't know. I saved seeds though from those, so I have a couple different varieties. Snaps are really beautiful and really add a lot to a bouquet. I'm going to try to grow some different types of yarrow this year. Yarrow's one that I think yarrow's one that's good to dry, and I think there's also some medicinal properties to yarrow. Yes, medicinal plant and cut flower. I need to do some more research on that, but regardless, yarrow is really pretty in bouquets. Haven't grown it before, but I think it's supposed to be pretty easy. It's supposed to be a perennial where we live in Zone 5, so I have a summer pastels mix and then this double diamond white mix. I'll also be growing some varieties of Feverview. I believe this is another, oh, that's a tender perennial, zones 5 to 9. I think this might be one that I can plant out though before the last frost. I'm going to be referring back to this Cool Flowers book for all of that. I still have a lot to learn, but I believe this is one of them, and they look like really pretty fillers for a bouquet. Status is supposed to be a really good dried flower. I actually know that. I bought a bouquet of this from a farmer's market, and it dries super easy. I have the apricot mix from Johnny's, so I have that to grow and dry, but also use in bouquets. White Orlea, I thought this was really pretty. So last year I actually used dill. I grew dill and used it a lot in my bouquets, but dill of course is green with yellow flowers, and this is gonna kind of be serve a similar purpose as dill in terms of the shape that it is, but it's a white flower. Straw flower is supposed to be a super good dried flower, so I got vintage white and silvery rose to try. These are from MIGardener. And then bachelor's button. These I believe are ones that I can plant out before the last frost. Just like a classic flower. Actually, don't know why I didn't get blue. Usually for bouquets I look for more of like the pinks and whites, but I also have this other like perennial cottage garden that I'm working on where I do pinks, whites, purples, and blues, so I might have to pick up a package of blue in this too. Okay, last year I tried this apple of Peru from Floret. It's supposed to be a filler. I planted it in the middle of my garden beds and then flowers all around it. Holy moly, this plant gets huge, like ginormous. It was insane. The stalk was like huge. It was huge. It was just a huge plant. I was not expecting it. And they grow these really pretty blue flowers with pods that are amazing in bouquets as filler. This year I will not be putting in these in my raised garden beds because they took up way too much room and shaded out a lot of flowers. But we have a propane tank that is just in the worst spot. You see it right when you drive up our driveway, and I hate it. So what I have some like evergreen shrubs that I planted around it, but they are still babies. They take time. So what I think I'm gonna do this year is plant some of this apple of Peru. I saved so many seeds from it around that tank just to cover it because these grew so fast and would cover it so well. I think I'm going to use that as a coverage for the propane tank until the shrubs get big enough to cover it, and then it will serve dual purpose because I'll also be able to go and cut from it for bouquets. So, and it won't take up room in my garden, which is a plus. Buplerum is another filler I'm going to be trying this year. Never grew that before. Along with Sweet Annie, I'm really excited for this. This is supposed to be a good filler, fresh, but also dries really well. And this gets huge, so this might also be going out towards the propane tank, but I'm excited to try this one. It's supposed to have a really nice scent to it as well. Copper Plume, another variety that I'm trying this year. I think it's going to be a good filler. For when you're growing flowers to cut and make bouquets, it's really easy to just like buy like the flowers you think of that are really pretty, like the Dahlias and Zinnias, those focal flowers. But what I've learned is it's really important to also grow filler, just plain green filler and filler flowers, because that's what brings your bouquet from just like looking like you cut a few flowers from the yard to looking like you bought a bouquet from the farmer's market. It takes it to the next level. That's why a lot of these flowers don't really look like those like big like showy flowers that you think of, because to make like a really pretty cohesive bouquet you need a variety of types. So you need spikes, you need green fillers, you need filler flower, like the smaller filler flowers that kind of add texture, and then the focal flowers. So maybe I'll do a video more on that, like especially when my garden's growing and I can show you the different flowers I have and how I put them together. But that's why my flower video consists of a lot of things that you wouldn't really like necessarily think of as, oh, like I want that as a cut flower, because you need to think of all those different components when you're making a bouquet. The other thing is I don't have my Dahlias in here like I mentioned, but my Dahlias are my focal flower in most of my bouquets, and those are all grown from tubers that I buy and save. So this year I actually am trying some Dahlias from seed. I saved seeds last year, but seeds from Dahlias do not grow the variety of Dahlia that you save the seed from. For example, Peaches and Cream is a variety of Dahlia. If I were to save seeds from that Dahlia, I would not get another Peaches and Cream. I would get random Dahlias, because the way their genetics work, their seeds are not true to type no matter what you do for pollination. So in order to get a true to type Dahlia, you need either a cutting or a tuber. The seeds though is how you get new varieties of Dahlias, which is super cool. So this year I am trying to grow some Dahlia seeds to see what I get, but from what I hear, usually only like 1 out of 100 or even less is a keeper Dahlia, unless you just are like growing them for pollinators. But yeah, little off topic. Kilimanjaro white marigolds. I grew these last year. I didn't realize how big these were going to get. These got huge and grew super prolifically. So I don't just love the smell of marigolds. So I don't know if I'm going to be growing these again, but if you do, these were a really cool marigold to grow and super easy to save seeds from. I got the Sylvia Queens mix for my perennial garden. Butterfly bush, I've heard mixed reviews on this because I think this can actually get kind of invasive. It looks really pretty, and again, I'm thinking of planting this kind of like around that propane tank to hide it, or like down by the creek where if it does spread, I'm not going to be mad about it. Let me know if you grow butterfly bush, what your opinion is, if they get out of control or not. Okay, last one, Love in a Mist. This is one that you can plant before your last frost date, or at least I can here in zone 5. Easy to grow. I can't remember if this one's good dried, but it looks like really delicate, and I think it's going to add like that whimsical feeling to the bouquet. Something that I'm working on this year is trying to find flowers that bloom throughout the whole season. So getting some flowers that bloom early in the spring, like the tulips and daffodils, but also some filler that can go with them and will last all the way through to the frost. What I've done in the past is picked out flowers that are only blooming in like the heart of summer. So I'm trying to learn how to space them out so I have flowers from like May to October. All right, so thank you for hanging out with me, talking all about flowers. I'm excited to make more videos. Honestly, if I'm being honest with you, my garden videos kind of like bomb on YouTube, but I love gardening, and it's really easy for me to share about it because I could talk about it all day. So this year I'm giving it kind of YouTube my best shot and seeing how it goes. I thought about cutting YouTube completely because it honestly takes a lot of time and I don't get a ton of like traffic to my YouTube channel, but those of you who are here and watch my videos are just so sweet and encouraging that I've decided to give YouTube another year and see. I'm going to try to be consistent, posting weekly videos, and see how it goes, and I'll decide from there. Thanks for hanging out with me today and talking all about flower seeds. I'm excited to show you as the season goes on, and you can actually see like these go from a packet of seeds to a bouquet of flowers. For now, I will just keep planning and getting ready for the season to come. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you in my next video.